I just wanted to say a little bit about the cave before I read from some letters, really. The cave was about as big as an underneath the stairs cupboard. And it sort of started off with a sort of normal door and then tapered down towards the back to a point there was just enough room to put a sleeping bag on the floor. And where I slept, in the front half, there was a tiny little desk. It was literally a box, and I used to sit on the floor and again write the letters. The idea of writing letters came to me about 3 or 4 days before I left, because I was actually terrified about doing 3.5 weeks in a cave in the desert. And I felt that it would be good to have something to do whilst I was there. And just out of nowhere, the idea of writing to people who had formed me and informed my sense of self, my sense of being alive, my sense of being appalled, that I would attempt to do something like that. When I got back, I showed them to a publisher, and they said, "Thank you very much," and the book came out earlier this year. Also, just to give you an idea of what I had to do in the cave, there was a remarkable Coptic monk whose cave it was that I borrowed. His name was Father Lazarus, and he had made another cave about 3 miles further up the mountain. The cave that I had was about 2.5 miles across the desert to where St. Anthony, the founder of monasticism, had his first cave. And there is a great sense that within that landscape, men have been walking around in the middle of the night saying their prayers now for some 1900 years. And you get that. That starts to come through the stones as you're there. Father Lazarus instructed me on a very strict routine of prayer. I was to get up at 5 and pray for 45 minutes. Again, I was to pray for 45 minutes at 9, again for 45 minutes at 12 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, and 9 o'clock. And then if I was able, I was to wake up at 1 o'clock and also do 45 minutes of prayer at that point. I felt in a sense that this was sort of rather like advertising Mars bars. They were just sort of throwing money at it. Just do it as often as you can. But it was the only thing in the absence of any life whatsoever. Occasionally a few birds, no trees, no grass, nothing. It ended up as all I had to hang on to whilst I was there, because there was just an absence of nothing. And for us, coming from the West, where we are overwhelmed with sights and sounds and smells and television and radio and internet, to go into a bubble such as the desert is incredibly shocking, because suddenly all of that is taken away from us. And it's at that point that we begin to understand how reliant mentally and spiritually we've become on it. And to go back to a place where there is nothing is very, very testing for all of us indeed. I spent the first 10 days really very terrified, trying to invent mental excuses as to why I should leave immediately. I felt I could fall down and break my arm. I felt I could just get up and leave. There was no point of staying. What was the point? And all the time, you're battling with your mind, which wants to take you out of there because it is so very difficult. And I had completely underestimated how difficult it would be. I had this very romanticized notion of, yes, of course, I can be like one of the desert fathers living in a cave. But the reality is brutal and difficult and very, very testing indeed. And I recommend it to anyone over the age of 18. We should all do it once in our life. Take 1 month out. 1 month out of 60, 70, 80 years. In the middle, towards the end, whenever, just to reflect on what on earth this experience is all about and where we are within that place, how we are feeling, what we have swallowed, the good stuff and the bad stuff.